So let's talk briefly about why and how ions form. First of all, why. This is something we talked about last unit. It's all about those octets in their valence energy level. So just to keep it straight, metals versus nonmetals, they have different strategies. Metals are losing electrons to go back to the previous energy level. For example, sodium, we talked about, its starting valence energy level is the third energy level. But in order to get to its octet, it loses an electron, which makes its valence no longer the third energy level, but the second energy level. So its octet is actually in the previous energy level. It gets rid of its third. Nonmetals, on the other hand, they gain electrons to fill their current level. For example, chlorine, which we talked about just a moment ago, chlorine has its valence in the third energy level. It gains an electron, and its octet is still in the third energy level. So nonmetals keep their energy level, metals drop down to the previous one in terms of their valence. Okay? Now, how do ions form? A question that for some reason I haven't heard yet from anybody is, okay, if we're gaining or losing electrons, where do those electrons come from? Because we know that matter can't just be made or destroyed, right? So it turns out that if an electron is lost, something had to have taken it. And if an electron is gained, something had to have given that electron. So the electron has to go somewhere, and the electron has to go somewhere, and it has to basically come from somewhere, I guess, is the way to say it. So what that really means is forming an ion is an exchange of electrons. That's what it's all about. The electron is flowing from a cation to an anion, or from a metal to a nonmetal. So for example, you can have sodium. It can give its electron, because it has a low ionization and a low electronegativity. It really doesn't care about its valence electron. Gives it away to chlorine, who really loves his valence electrons. He has a high electronegativity, high ionization energy, so very attracted. This electron is very attracted to chlorine, more so than sodium, and so it simply gets exchanged. And whoops, this shouldn't have had the negative on it yet, but once it gains that electron, the chlorine does become a chloride ion, so it's -1, and then the sodium, losing its electron, becomes sodium +1. Okay? Now, technically, you don't need to put the ones here if you have a positive or negative. It's assumed if you put a positive here, it's a +1. If you put a negative here, it's a -1. If it's greater than +1, you put positive. Then you have to write a number, like +2. If this charge was greater than -1, you'd have to put -2 or -3. Okay? But they exchange, and that creates the ions.